the Mac of the Year.
Today, we're going to see the rest of the film, The Battle of Algiers. Do you have comments or questions on the first part that we saw? In the context of national liberation movements. As I told you before, to recap that, Mr. Friends. Oh, you videoing, okay. Back from the 1400s and 1500s, a handful of European capitalist nations basically conquered the world through extraordinary guile and advanced military weaponry. They owned various parts of the world, like Great Britain, England, owned India, owned China, and their natural resources. In fact, they said the Indians were all British citizens, as were the Chinese British citizens. France conquered Vietnam and renamed it French Indochina. When the Vietnamese finally put not just the French, but the Americans out, they brought the name back Vietnam. But the French lost in Vietnam. It's why they were so hype about trying to stay in Algeria during that same period. Hundreds of years went by while these countries were held in colonialism and imperialism. Not colonization necessarily, but the French did colonize armed struggle, like the Vietnamese did, like the Algerians did. They actually planted bombs and fought back to put the invaders out of their country. I show this because you need to understand that this is the era of decolonization. This is the era of people who, as Dr. King used to say, who had sat in the darkness, who have now seen a great light, the light of self-determination, the right to determine their destiny in their own country, despite what the foreigners think, like the big, powerful foreigners. Afghans the same way. The Soviets spent 10 years there, killed 1 million people, but had to leave. It broke their bank. In fact, there are Russian analysts who say that it wasn't just a failure to produce consumer goods that tore the Soviet Union apart, it was that they went bankrupt trying to control the liberation movement in Afghanistan, a multi-trillion-dollar industry, while they were in huge debt. There might be some parallels between now and then, okay? In fact, the United States helped the Taliban fight the Soviet Union. It helped bin Laden too. Never thinking that they would also fight them like they had fought the Soviets and the British, 60 years before that. Why Afghanistan? People say, oh, they're just militant, they just want their own land, there's a bunch of crazy rackettes. No, they know that there's a lot of gold there, oil, diamonds, platinum. And they also know that the big oil companies want to build a pipeline through Afghanistan all the way to the Caspian Sea for the European nations, owned by BP, Halliburton, etc. So they fight not just for dignity and right to self-determination to run their own country, they're fighting to keep their resources from greedy pirates, okay? So imagine if a Chinese or somebody who would do it, but let's say the Chinese invaded America. Most Americans would not support the Chinese. And what they found in Vietnam and other places is modern warfare, these liberation movements that sprout up all over Africa, Latin America, and Asia, that they're not about body count, who kills the most people. If they were, the United States would have won the war in Vietnam, 65,000, that's how many we lost, compared to 2 million, that's how many Vietnamese were killed. So if it's about body count, we won. But that's not the way you determine who wins modern warfare. It's determined by who wins the hearts and minds of the people. The United States failed to do that in Vietnam, and that's why they had to leave. The Soviets failed to do that in Afghanistan and had to leave. We're failing to do that in Afghanistan too, and I believe for the same reason we're going to have to leave, and not only because we're not winning, but because it's breaking our bank. It's a trillions of dollar operation, and they're about to go into Somalia, Yemen, etc., as you've seen on Democracy Now! That's why I have you watching Democracy Now! Because nobody else is really reporting on all the places the United States is going. They've just sent special forces into the central Congo. Democratic Republic of the Congo, United States Special Forces are fighting there as we speak. Somalia too, Yemen. But corporate media doesn't talk about that. And if you don't look for yourself and become an independent studier, as some of you have become, you're not going to know that. But see, you're the people who have the responsibility to explain it to everybody else. Somebody asks me, well, why were we in Afghanistan? You got to come up with short answers that don't require you to pull over and cut the engine off and talk about, well, in the beginning, you got to make sure it's about oil, it's about global power, you know. You got to know what it is so you can break it down to somebody who's not in class, who's never set foot on a college campus. You're the ones, conscious intellectuals, if you are conscious and you're active intellectual, you're the ones who, when somebody wants to know, you can tell them, yeah, I've been in college studying this. I've studied this on my own, self-study, independent study. So you're the ones who, on the mountaintop, look and see, the promised land, right? You're the ones. So you got a responsibility to everybody who's not on the mountaintop, not in college, not in independent study, who's down to the river washing clothes, on truce waiting for the bus. You're the translators of these big concepts to people who haven't even thought about them before. And you just can't go and word them up and chase them around, but when they ask you about it, that's the teachable moment, and you need some science to drop on them. That's your role. That's what Du Bois used to call the talented 10. So I'm saying you got a mission. It's just like Mission Impossible if you choose to accept it. You know what I'm saying? So understand that your question.